What if the food you've been avoiding for years isn't the problem? What if the reason your belly feels swollen, your digestion feels slow, and your body seems to store everything you eat after 40 has nothing to do with lack of discipline, and everything to do with how your body now responds to food? You were taught to fear carbohydrates. You were told they turn into fat. You learned to associate foods like potatoes, bananas, and starches with failure, guilt, and loss of control. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one explained to you. After 40, restriction often creates more inflammation than food ever did. If you've tried cutting carbs, skipping meals, eating clean, or following rules that once worked but now only make you feel worse, your body isn't rebelling. It's adapting, protecting, holding on. And what if I told you that the same carbohydrate you were told to eliminate, when prepared in a very specific way, stops behaving like sugar altogether? That it can stop feeding inflammation and start supporting your gut, your hormones, and even your metabolism? This isn't about trends. This isn't about willpower. And this definitely isn't about eating more to lose weight. This is about chemistry, about what happens when food changes structure, and how your body reads that information after 40. Because food is not just calories. Food is instruction. And your body responds differently depending on the message it receives. Many women believe their bodies are broken because nothing works anymore. But most of the time, the body isn't broken. It's overwhelmed, inflamed, and misunderstood. And today, instead of teaching you what to remove from your plate, I want to show you what happens when you stop fighting your physiology and start working with it. Because the real reset doesn't start with restriction. It starts with understanding. The fear of carbohydrates didn't start in your body. It started in your mind. After 40, many women aren't afraid of food because food hurts them. They're afraid because they were trained to associate eating with loss of control. Somewhere along the way, carbohydrates became the enemy. Potatoes were labeled dangerous. Bananas became too much sugar. Starches turned into silent threats that needed to be managed, avoided, or earned. And every time the scale went up, the blame was immediate. I shouldn't have eaten that. I knew better. I lost control again. But here's what almost no one tells you. This fear didn't come from science. It came from simplification. From diet culture compressing complex female physiology into a single villain so it could sell certainty in an uncertain body. When you're younger, your hormones buffer mistakes. Insulin is responsive. Cortisol resets faster. Estrogen cushions stress. So restriction seems to work. Temporarily. And because it works once, the brain learns a dangerous lesson. Less food equals control. After 40, that lesson backfires. Your body is no longer operating on the same hormonal software. Stress hormones rise faster and stay longer. Blood sugar becomes more reactive. The nervous system interprets restriction not as discipline, but as threat. And the moment the body senses threat, it shifts into protection mode. Protection looks like retention. Retention looks like bloating. Bloating gets mislabeled as fat. So women restrict more. They cut harder. They fear food even more. And the cycle tightens. What's rarely acknowledged is how deeply emotional this fear becomes. Eating stops being nourishment and starts feeling like negotiation. You don't eat when you're hungry. You eat when you feel allowed. You don't listen to your body. You monitor it. Every meal becomes a test you feel you might fail. And when your stomach doesn't flatten even though you're doing everything right, the conclusion is always the same. The problem must be you. But the truth is quieter and far less judgmental. A body under chronic restriction behaves very differently from a body under support. Especially a female body navigating hormonal transition. Carbohydrates didn't suddenly become toxic at 40. Your relationship with them changed because your body's tolerance to stress changed. Fear raises cortisol. Cortisol changes digestion. Digestion changes inflammation. And inflammation is not a discipline problem. It's a signal. The problem was never the carbohydrate alone. It was the context in which it was eaten. and the state your body was in when it received it. And until that fear is questioned, the body stays on guard. Carbohydrate is not a single thing, but it was taught to you as if it were. Somewhere along the way, everything that wasn't protein or fat was thrown into the same category: sugar. And once that idea settled in, nuance disappeared. Potatoes, rice, bread, fruit, starches, all became interchangeable threats. Same word, same fear, same punishment. But your body doesn't read food by labels. It reads structure. What most women don't realize is that the way a carbohydrate behaves inside your body depends less on what it is and more on what state it's in when it enters your system. Texture, temperature, preparation, timing. These factors completely change the message your body receives. The same food can act like fuel or like fire. When a carbohydrate is quickly broken down, it floods the bloodstream with glucose. Insulin spikes. Cortisol reacts. The body shifts into storage mode. That's the version you were warned about. And yes, in that state, carbohydrates can worsen inflammation, especially after 40. But that's not the only state carbohydrates can exist in. There is another form, one that doesn't behave like sugar at all. One that resists digestion in the small intestine. One that doesn't spike glucose the way you expect. One that reaches parts of your body most diets never consider. And this is where the story changes. Because when a carbohydrate stops acting like a fast energy source, it stops triggering the same hormonal alarms. It doesn't rush. It doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't demand insulin the same way. Instead of feeding spikes, it feeds systems. This is why two women can eat the same food and have completely different outcomes. One feels bloated, heavy, inflamed. The other feels satisfied, calm, regulated. Not because one is disciplined and the other isn't, but because the body is responding to different signals. After 40, your body becomes less forgiving of chaos and more responsive to context. It no longer tolerates rapid swings. It prefers stability, predictability, safety. And when food arrives in a form the body recognizes as safe, the response changes. Hunger quiets differently. Digestion slows appropriately. Inflammation doesn't escalate as fast. This isn't about eating more carbohydrates. It's about eating carbohydrates that don't behave like enemies inside your system. And until this distinction is made, women keep fighting the wrong battle, eliminating foods instead of understanding how those foods are communicating with their bodies. Because not all carbohydrates ask your body to store. Some ask it to heal. There is a form of carbohydrate your body doesn't treat as sugar. And once you understand this, the fear starts to crack. Most people believe digestion is inevitable, that everything you eat is broken down, absorbed, and turned into energy or stored as fat. But digestion isn't automatic. It's conditional. Some structures open easily, others don't. When a carbohydrate is fully digestible, enzymes in the small intestine break it apart quickly. Glucose enters the bloodstream. Insulin rises. The body reacts fast. That's the pathway you've been warned about for years. But there is another pathway. In this state, the carbohydrate resists digestion. It doesn't break down where you expect it to. It passes through the small intestine largely intact, untouched by the enzymes that normally turn starch into sugar. This is what changes everything. Because if a carbohydrate doesn't become glucose in the small intestine, it doesn't demand the same insulin response. It doesn't trigger the same hormonal cascade. It doesn't behave like fuel that needs to be burned or stored immediately. Instead, it behaves like something else entirely. It moves deeper into the digestive system, into an area most diets ignore, the large intestine. And that's where the body's internal ecosystem lives. Trillions of bacteria, signals, chemical messengers. A communication center that quietly influences metabolism, immunity, and inflammation. This type of carbohydrate isn't feeding you directly. It's feeding the system that feeds you. That's why it doesn't spike blood sugar the way you expect. That's why it creates fullness without heaviness. That's why women often feel satisfied without the crash. After 40, this distinction becomes critical. Your body is less tolerant of rapid glucose swings, less forgiving of insulin spikes, more sensitive to stress signals. And when food arrives in a form that doesn't provoke those alarms, the nervous system responds differently. The body doesn't brace. It doesn't store defensively. It doesn't inflame as aggressively. This isn't a loophole. It's a biological state. And the reason so many women never experience it is simple. No one teaches them that food can change behavior based on structure, not just ingredients. Once you see that not all carbohydrates are metabolized the same way, the idea that carbs turn into fat loses its grip. Because some carbohydrates never become sugar in the first place. They become information instead. And the body listens. The intestine is not just a digestive tube. It's a hormonal organ. After 40, this distinction becomes impossible to ignore, even if no one ever explained it to you. Because when the gut is compromised, hormones don't regulate quietly in the background. They react. They fluctuate. They misfire. Inside your intestine lives a complex ecosystem that does far more than process food. It helps regulate estrogen metabolism, communicates with insulin, influences cortisol levels, and directly impacts inflammation. This is not alternative theory. This is physiology. When the intestinal lining is healthy, it acts like a selective filter. Nutrients pass through. Toxins are escorted out. Hormones are metabolized and eliminated efficiently. The system stays clean, balanced, predictable. But when the gut becomes inflamed, often from years of stress, restriction, rushed eating, and inflammatory foods, that filter weakens. Gaps form. Signals leak. And the body shifts into defense. This is where many women begin to feel off without understanding why. Estrogen that should have been eliminated gets reabsorbed. Cortisol stays elevated longer than it should. Insulin signaling becomes erratic. The immune system stays on low-grade alert. And the abdomen becomes a holding zone, swollen not from excess fat, but from fluid, inflammation, and protective tension. The belly isn't expanding because you ate too much. It's expanding because your body doesn't feel safe letting go. After 40, the gut becomes even more sensitive to internal chaos. Hormonal shifts change motility. Stress alters blood flow. The microbiome composition changes. And when digestion slows or becomes inefficient, the intestine sends a clear message to the rest of the body. Hold, protect, retain. This is why bloating feels different now than it did years ago. It's heavier, more persistent, less responsive to dieting. Because it's no longer just digestive, it's hormonal and immunological. The intestine also plays a critical role in blood sugar stability. When the gut lining is compromised, glucose handling becomes unpredictable. Insulin spikes become more frequent. Crashes feel harsher. And the body learns to anticipate instability. So it prepares. Preparation looks like storage. Storage looks like inflammation. Inflammation gets mistaken for fat. And all of this happens quietly, beneath the surface, while women blame themselves for not having enough discipline. But the truth is simpler and far less personal. A dysregulated gut creates dysregulated hormones. And no amount of restriction can override a system that feels under threat. Before the body can release, it must trust. And trust begins in the gut. Fermentation is not a problem. It's a partnership. Most women were taught to fear what happens in the gut after food passes digestion. Gas, movement, sound, discomfort. Fermentation became synonymous with something going wrong. But fermentation itself is not the enemy. Dysfunctional fermentation is. When certain carbohydrates reach the large intestine intact, they meet a workforce your body depends on but rarely acknowledges. Beneficial bacteria. These bacteria don't steal from you. They build for you. They ferment slowly, intelligently, purposefully. And the result of that fermentation is not sugar, it's communication. During this process, bacteria convert these undigested structures into compounds that nourish the intestinal lining, calm inflammation, and signal safety to the nervous system. This is where the body stops bracing and starts cooperating. When fermentation is healthy, the intestine becomes less reactive. The immune system lowers its guard. Fluid retention decreases. Bloating softens instead of hardening. The abdomen doesn't need to protect as aggressively. This is especially important after 40, when the body becomes less tolerant of aggressive inputs and more responsive to subtle signals. Fast digestion creates spikes. Slow fermentation creates stability. Healthy bacteria don't ask the body to store energy. They ask it to regulate. They help tighten the intestinal barrier. They improve insulin sensitivity. They reduce inflammatory messengers that keep cortisol elevated. And they do all of this quietly, without forcing, without shock. This is why some women feel calmer after eating foods that once scared them, not heavier. Why hunger becomes gentler. Why cravings soften instead of escalating. The system isn't being hijacked. It's being supported. But when the gut environment is imbalanced, overcrowded with harmful bacteria, inflamed from years of stress, or deprived of the substrates it needs, fermentation becomes chaotic. Gas builds. Pressure increases. Discomfort follows. And the body learns to associate these foods with danger. So the fear deepens. What's often missed is that the discomfort isn't proof that the food is wrong. It's evidence that the environment needs repair. After 40, the goal isn't to silence fermentation. It's to restore it. Because when beneficial bacteria are fed correctly, they don't inflate the body. They stabilize it. They create conditions where hormones don't need to shout to be heard. And when the gut becomes a place of cooperation instead of conflict, the body stops reacting as if it's under attack. Fermentation, when done right, doesn't create chaos. It creates order. There is a compound your body depends on for repair, but most women have never heard its name. It's not a supplement. It's not a pill. And you won't find it listed on a label. It's produced inside you, when the right conditions exist. When beneficial bacteria ferment certain carbohydrates slowly, they generate a short-chain fatty acid that acts like a master regulator inside the gut. This compound becomes fuel for the cells lining the colon. It strengthens their walls. It seals gaps. It restores order where chaos once lived. When this compound is present, the intestine stops leaking signals of distress. The immune system lowers its volume. Inflammation doesn't escalate as quickly. And hormones no longer need to overreact to protect you. This is where repair begins. After 40, many women experience what feels like a permanent state of internal irritation. Foods trigger discomfort. Stress lingers longer. Recovery feels slow. And the body seems to hold on to everything. Weight, water, tension. This compound changes that conversation. It tells the gut, you are safe. It tells the immune system, stand down. It tells insulin, respond calmly. It tells cortisol, the emergency has passed. When the gut lining is nourished at a cellular level, digestion becomes more efficient. Nutrients are absorbed properly. Hormonal byproducts are eliminated instead of recycled. And the abdomen no longer needs to stay swollen as a protective barrier. This is why repair doesn't start with burning fat. It starts with restoring integrity. Many women chase metabolism when what they need is containment. A gut that can hold nutrients without leaking stress signals into the bloodstream. A system that doesn't interpret every meal as a threat. This compound also plays a role in blood sugar regulation. By improving insulin sensitivity at the gut level, it reduces the need for exaggerated insulin responses. Glucose enters cells more smoothly. Crashes soften. Cravings lose their edge. And because the majority of the immune system is anchored in the gut, strengthening this barrier reduces systemic inflammation. Skin improves. Joints feel less reactive. Energy becomes steadier, not explosive. but reliable. This isn't a miracle response. It's a biological correction. And the reason so many women never experience it is because the body can't produce this compound without the right inputs, without the right substrates, without the right environment. You don't force repair. You create conditions where repair becomes possible. And when that happens, the body stops fighting itself. And sometimes, even when the food is right, the body doesn't respond the way you expect. You eat something that should help, and instead of relief, you feel pressure, gas, discomfort, a sense that your body is pushing back. And the thought comes immediately, this doesn't work for me. Or worse, my body is broken. But this reaction isn't failure. It's feedback. After years of stress, restriction, inflammation, and hormonal volatility, the internal environment changes. The gut doesn't behave like a clean, empty room waiting for nourishment. It behaves like a crowded space already filled with noise. When harmful bacteria dominate, when inflammation has been present for too long, or when digestion has been rushed and under-supported, even beneficial inputs can feel overwhelming at first. Not because they're wrong, but because the system isn't ready. Think of it like opening windows in a house that hasn't been aired out in years. The air moves. Dust rises. Discomfort appears before relief does. That doesn't mean fresh air is the problem. It means the space needs time to recalibrate. This is where many women stop too soon. They interpret initial discomfort as confirmation that their body can't tolerate certain foods. So they pull back, restrict again, silence the signal instead of listening to it. And the cycle continues. After 40, the body becomes more honest. It reacts faster. It communicates more clearly, but not always more comfortably. Sensitivity increases, not as a weakness, but as a protective mechanism. When the gut environment is overwhelmed, fermentation can become chaotic instead of supportive. Pressure builds instead of easing. And the nervous system interprets that sensation as danger, raising cortisol and tightening the abdomen further. This is not the body rejecting help. It's the body asking for preparation. Support must be layered, gradual, respectful of the terrain that already exists. You don't rebuild a system by flooding it. You restore it by creating stability first. That's why timing matters. Context matters. And why introducing supportive foods without addressing stress, hydration, nervous system load, and digestive rhythm can feel counterproductive. The body doesn't need more force. It needs less threat. When the environment shifts from survival to safety, responses change. What once caused discomfort begins to feel grounding. What once triggered defense starts to signal nourishment. The body doesn't resist healing. It resists being rushed. And when you understand that, the reaction stops feeling personal. Some foods don't change your body because of what they are. They change it because of how they're prepared. This is where most nutritional advice fails women after 40. It focuses on ingredients, calories, or macronutrients, while completely ignoring structure. But the body doesn't respond to food names. It responds to form. The same ingredient can send opposite messages depending on temperature, time, and transformation. And this is where the idea becomes real, because we're not talking about exotic foods, detox trends, or ingredients you need to hunt down. We're talking about foods already sitting in your kitchen, foods you were told to avoid, behaving differently when time and preparation change their structure. Take potatoes. A potato eaten hot, straight from the stove, sends one message to the body. The same potato cooked, cooled, and eaten later sends a completely different one. The ingredient didn't change. The signal did. Digestion slows. Blood sugar response softens. The body doesn't rush to store. The same applies to rice. Freshly cooked rice behaves aggressively inside the system. But when it's allowed to cool and rest, its structure shifts. What once caused spikes becomes steadier. What once triggered becomes more tolerable. Even bananas follow this rule. A ripe banana delivers sugar quickly. But when bananas are used earlier in their ripening stage and prepared differently, they stop behaving like fast sugar and begin acting more like a fiber, feeding the gut instead of flooding the bloodstream. These foods don't stop being carbohydrates. They stop behaving like sugar. And when that happens, they stop demanding insulin the same way. They stop escalating cortisol. They stop reinforcing the cycle of inflammation that keeps the abdomen tight and reactive. After 40, this distinction matters more than calories ever did, because the body no longer responds well to speed. It prefers predictability, stability, signals it recognizes as safe. This is why many women notice something unexpected when these foods are prepared intentionally. Less bloating, not more. Fuller without heaviness. Satisfied without crashes. The belly doesn't flatten overnight. It softens gradually, as the body stops bracing. This isn't permission to eat without awareness. It's an invitation to eat with intelligence. When familiar foods are prepared in ways that respect digestion, they stop acting like threats and start acting like allies. They support the gut environment instead of overwhelming it. They allow hormones to respond without panic. This is how ordinary foods earn their place back. Not as cheats, not as miracles, but as tools. Tools that work only when the body feels safe enough to use them. So now the question isn't whether carbohydrates are good or bad. And it isn't whether your body is capable of change. The real question is this. How many years have you spent fighting your body for reacting exactly the way it was designed to react under pressure? How many foods did you cut, blame, or fear? Not because they harmed you, but because no one taught you how your body actually works after 40. And if your belly isn't holding fat, but holding protection, if your digestion isn't broken, but overwhelmed, if your hormones aren't failing, but responding to signals they've been receiving for years, what would change if, instead of asking, what should I eliminate, you finally asked, what does my body need to feel safe enough to let go? I want to know, what food have you been afraid of that you're now willing to question?